I really don't make a semantic thesis on what most people are saying, but I guess I mean, I would agree that when people say something is good and bad, they're saying that I have this view about what a good life is to me, and this thing disrupts that, right?
I don't know. Like, what do you think people mean? Like, I don't know. Specifically, whenever they say like, "Oh, this is a good life," and this thing disrupts that, it's like it seems as if it hinges on some like just stance dependent fact. Like, oh yeah, well, I have this specific stance about this is what makes a good life. Somebody else has like a different idea on
Alternatively,
that.
they have that. Alternatively, they have that stance because of a judgment they've made about something good.
But,
So, like,
mm-hmm.
I don't know. I normally don't. Again, like I said, I normally don't make a full semantic thesis because I think a lot of people are in error. But when it comes to talking about subjectivism, I think that subjectivism, when people say, well, that which is good is just that which I desire, well, I don't really think so because, you know, what, just if I ask why do you have that desire, like, what is the explanation? It's because of some judgment you made about something being good or bad.
I mean,
Like
would
you have a
it?
desire because you judged it as good.
I don't know. Would it just be because like after evaluating the facts of the matter, there's just some this like mental state that's just triggered after analyzing the facts of the matter? Like that could be it. I don't know. Like, or you
Yeah,
could
yeah,
just.
yeah. But
Mm-hmm.
what is the fact of the matter that causes the given mental state? And my answer is positive qualia and negative qualia, right? So you'll have pleasure pain sensation.
Mm-hmm.
Holy shit!
This guy is dying mid conversation. I'm crying.
You cast your fucking black magic on me. Anyway, but the well, what will happen is people will have pleasure pain sensations, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then they'll make a judgment about the thing that they're having pleasure pain sensations about, and then that judgment will create a desire.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, but if you think about it, I mean, the reason why you have a desire, what desires, their purpose is they're to create motivations to guide you towards pleasurable experiences. And so,
Mm.
I mean, if pleasurable experiences are really the goal, and it's not desires per se, then a desire isn't necessarily tracking of what is the most pleasurable or what you
Mm.
really, at the end of the day, are seeking, what you
Mm-hmm.
really value, because you can be an error in what you judge. So, I mean, that's why I'm not a subjectivist. There's facts about what causes pleasure and pain, and it's not just a matter of just because you think something.
I mean, well, the fact about what causes pleasure or pain could just be like maybe you could say it's like once this given event obtains, then it causes you to have pleasure or pain. So do you think whenever people are making, or like at least whenever you're making moral judgments, you're saying that, hey, there's this given fact about what causes pleasure or pain, and I want to what's it called? I want like any given action which causes play or which causes pain come like more so compared to pleasure. I want to like I would say that I shouldn't pursue that, and this given fact that causes more pleasure compared to pain, I want to pursue that. Are those the sort of semantics you have then?
It's not about once. So the way again, it's not folk. It's so my view is that you have pleasure and pain.
Mm-hmm.
You have good. I don't like. I tend to use on the. You have favorable and disfavorable experiences,
Mm-hmm.
and then goodness is a creation of the human mind, and it's specifically a policy that is basically like a causal guide to achieve a given mental state that
Mm-hmm.
we're talking about as being favorable.
Mm-hmm.
So good there just means of a policy, an action guiding policy to lead you towards positive experiences.
Uh, an action guiding policy that leads. I mean, well, I don't know about that one because then how would you ground the way people are motivated to like act specifically? Like, say for an instance that like say I make a claim and the claim is like I have a desire or like I make a claim that this is bad, right? Specifically, you could say the reason why I'm motivated to act is because I have a direct desire towards acting, and it wouldn't
Uh-huh.
just be because like oh well I have a direct desire, and whenever I'm making a claim about what is moral and what is immoral, I'm just saying that hey these are the sort of facts or these are the sort of like events or these are the sort of like rules or duties that you have towards achieving that desire compared to not achieving it. I don't really think people have such like clear cut out rule sets
No. It's
whenever
not a
they're
matter
using.
of.
Hmm?
It's not like I'm not again. I'm making a full theory. I'm just saying the way that we should be using the terms.
Mm.
Um, But as it pertains to what you were just saying, I agree. People are motivated by desires. Yeah, desires have motivating characteristics, but what the desire is a motivation towards is dependent on the kind of judgments that you make and the kind of ideas you have about the causal guide to achieve positive experiences, right?
Oh, okay.
Like if I
Okay, so specifically, like you think whenever, like at least you the disagreement you have with subjectivists is they just say like oh yeah, well this is wrong because I have a desire against there, but then you want to know like where that desire is specifically coming from or what is that desire specifically trying to achieve. I mean, would any subjectivists just say that's also just grounded in maybe some other like subjective standard that they have, right? Or maybe it's grounded like there's some
well, here's
evolutionary
the
proof.
well, here's the point. Desires, because causally desires are cognitive in the sense that they depend on judgments that you can make, and those judgments can be good or bad. And so, whether something is produces positive qualia at a basic level, that's not something that your attitudes or you can control, right? That's not something within, right? So that's something just objectively, it has to be the way it is because of the way you are as a human being. And so the reason that you ask, like, where the desires come from, is just explain.
Shinra, what's up?
To explain the creation of the norms aren't. It's not really what's good is not like really just like what you desire, right? It's actually based on this thing which is objective, and you can be in error in creating a motivation towards.
So
or again,
I mean, well, my question is like, if you're saying, if the point you're trying to make
is hard to cut into you guys' conversation. Are you guys debating or
no?
Which one is it?
No.
Okay.
But like what's it called? If the sort of claim you're making is just something like people typically like, or at least the desires that you have, they're trying to go towards this certain sort of direction, and the direction is like not the type of thing which you can change with your own like personal mental state. Do you know like how would you explain like the conflicting sort of desires that people have? Would you say like some of the desires that people have they are aimed towards like achieving this sort of specific aimed towards achieving?
Well, yeah, so that's you gotta remember. So desires are cognitive in the sense that they depend on belief. So if you have a retarded belief, you can have a retarded desire that is like super divorced from causing positive experiences. Like people's intellectual honesty and I guess like retarded cultural background can influence them forming stupid beliefs. So I mean, the way it's explained is it's just explained by the degree of choices they're making, like kinds of choices that or the kind of judgments that they're making, and how good the judgments are.
I mean, well, Juju is hilarious, but well, specifically, I just want to know then, like, you think that if there's a case in which two people are like having or two people are engaging in moral discourse, one of them has specific desires towards achieving this said goal, and the goal is like how they believe a good life should be led, and the way they think a good life should be led is, oh well, every single time I see a child, I want to punch it in the nose and kick it in the chest, and that is the sort of life that I think I want to lead. And the reason why I want to is because I believe that, or I think like just assuming the world that they think it, or like it will actually cause them specifically more pleasure than like any other alternative course of action. And then somebody else who has the opposing belief for like the complete opposite reasons, right? Like how would you solve this sort of like disputes then?
Well, the answer is, it's objective, right? What determines what the ultimate goal is, right? So the ultimate goal is positive qualia, right? I mean, that's pretty easily reducible. And then these desires are just these emergent kind of guidelines that exist to guide you towards, or motivate you and guide you towards positive qualia. So the question is, you would look at, well, what determines what is positive qualia? And the answer is, of course, your nature as a human being. You are a specific kind of thing, and because you're a specific kind of thing, you undergo certain conscious phenomenal states in this given situation. So another way to put it is there's causal laws surrounding the production of qualia that are not within your control, they're objective. And the way you would resolve the dispute is you'd appeal to reality, and you say, look, in reality, this behavior follows this causal law, and that's why it's this course of action is good and this course of action is not good.
Wait, so you'd say like what's it called? Specifically, the way you'd solve those sorts of disputes is like by looking at some empirical fact of the matter and saying like,
Well, it's it's not empirical necessarily study, but like in principle, yeah, it's an appeal to man's nature, which you learn empirically.
So like I mean, if specifically like whenever people are solving moral dilemmas, right, or whenever people are engaging in like moral conversations, you think that the sort of answer that they are trying to, or the sort of answer that they'd be having there is, or to their dispute is just whether or not this thing does or doesn't actually increase the total amount of like pleasure, or does or doesn't actually increase the total amount of like pleasure they have.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, then don't you think like then basically most moral disputes that people have in general don't actually get resolved at all because neither of them are able to discover which sort of ways you act like actually maximize the sort of pleasurable experiences you get then.
I think well, I'm not gonna make a statement about like most disagreements. I really don't know. I do think though that disagreements are resolved. Like some of them are, and the reason why is because in judging things empirically, you can create principles that kind of serve as a summarization of an action. This kinds of actions relationship to the production of qualia. So, for example, like I can tell you that being productive is good. Being productive is consistent and contributive as a kind of thing to the production of qualia. And so I can judge things at a principle level, and of course that's the way that most people actually judge actions, right? They'll like look at the principles, consult like governing the thing. They'll be like, is this action productive? Was this action honest? Was it generous and stuff like that? So I do think that those kinds of things can resolve. Now, obviously, they don't fucking justify the virtue of anything. Like when they talk, most people don't do that, but that's just because they're not philosophers. I think operating in the background, like they think that being productive is good, like for a variety of reasons that ultimately are empirical.
Okay, so you just believe like most moral disputes then the way you'd resolve all of them is just by looking at some empirical fact as to whether or not this sort of action does or doesn't like cause the most amount of pleasurable experiences. Then what sort of like if that's the sort of view you hold, then what sort of motivations do you have whenever you say you're pro-choice, for example? Do you not think that whenever you're like, for example, you say that abortion is morally correct, you're just robbing you're just robbing this fetus of all of the pleasurable experiences that it could have had? And if the sort of goals you have is towards maximizing pleasurable experiences, wouldn't that just work against the sort of goal you're having?
No, I'm not a utilitarian. I'm an egoist, and there's debate to be had on the counterfactual account of harm as well. I don't know if I'd accept that, but yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, firstly, by the way, I'm not an act egoist. I'm a rule egoist, but that's a different thing. The point is this though. No, it doesn't work against the view. Whenever you kill a fetus, there is no firstly you have no obligation inherently to produce positive experiences for others. So you have an obligation to produce them for yourself, yeah. But secondly, assuming some kind of basic benevolence where you also want to promote the happy experiences of others, if fetuses are not people, they're not moral agents, which you consider, so.
I mean, well, wait, you don't think that you have like more obligations to create positive experiences for others? So say that I was walking past a room where Apollo was getting tortured to death, for example, and by me saving him, I would make him have extremely high positive experiences compared to him currently being tortured. You think that I don't have any sort of moral obligation to do that?
I don't think you have an obligation in virtue of the fact that you're producing positive experiences for them.
Wait, then what sort of specifically, what do you think grounds an obligation then?
It's whether or not it's self-interested.
Wait, what do you mean by that?
Self-interested meaning like conducive towards your own flourishing, a life of enjoyment.
Wait, so you think that, for example, say, again, I walked into a pool, like I teleported into a different country, and I walked in and I saw Apollo getting like his organs ripped open, right? And him getting tortured or not has no effect on my own personal flourishing and has nothing to do with like my own personal pleasure. You think I have no moral obligation to save him?
Well, if you stipulate that it has literally no effect on you, then yeah, I would maintain that. But I don't think the situation you described described as like that.
Okay, but okay, look at other examples where, like, a mother, for example, abandons her children so she can live an entirely more pleasurable life, leaving her children to a life full of suffering, poverty, and living, like, going through care homes. You think that that mother, like, has no moral obligation
Like,
towards her children then?
like you mean like in a foster care system or something?
Yeah, say like foster care system where, like, in like rural Brazil where they get beat all the time if they talk too loud.
Well, again, there's a couple things. Establishing the selfish reason why you should be nice to other people is a whole thing. There's a couple reasons why, but I mean, one really obvious reason is, like, being nice to other people increases the likelihood they're going to be nice to you. And then also treating people poorly, like, let's say you treat person one really poorly, it also decreases the likelihood that other people that are not person one are going to treat you good too. Like, if you treat kids like shit, most people are going to treat you like shit too. Anyway, but aside from...
But wait, but wouldn't, like, I mean, those sort of, like, probable arguments, I don't really agree with them. So in the example I sort of gave you where you just, like, never, and I know these sort of examples happen when you, like, never see your child again after you abandon them at the side of a street. You never see them again. So, and nobody who you know currently knows about the sort of actions you've done. Or say, like, I murder somebody, for example, and nobody knows that I murdered them, and I just keep going on with my life. I never repeat the action.
Yeah, and it's like a perfect crime example. Yeah.
Yeah, like, people would still say that you have a moral obligation to take care of your children there, right?
Well, I'm not making a folk semantic theory.
Oh yeah, well, obviously, like, but I'm just saying it doesn't seem to align with most people's moral intuitions. No, like, isn't those sorts of, like, egoist?
Well, I don't think that's good to do that in that case. Again, I'm a rule egoist, right? So I don't think that the way that people make judgments in situations is by looking at, like, particular cases and then, like, just abandoning principle and just feeling it out. I think that the way that you should and people do live their life is they have this set of principles which, generally orient them towards a flourishing life, and those principles are, most of the time, benevolence and productivity and cooperation and justice and all these things. And so, I mean, my view would say that you should not just abandon children on the side of the road.
Yeah, but
and
I mean, wait.
Also explain why you shouldn't do it.
Yeah, I mean, well, so specifically, can you repeat your view? You said that you're a real egoist, so you believe, like, what specifically?
I believe that I believe that what's good is there are certain principles that you construct based on the facts surrounding what leads towards a life of enjoyment. And those rules determine what are good and bad.
Yeah, so, like, also, you also agree that, like, okay, this guy's dying with conversation, but oh my goodness, this woman is calling me. Give me a second.
What's your stance on Colorblind?
On what?
Mission.
Yeah,
Get your
don't
blood
worry.
back.
Everyone can be calm. I've returned. But what were you saying before, like, Divinity? I forgot because of the
I said
mother.
that-
You guys four, that's great.
I said that what's good and bad is determined by the construction of rules.
And the construction of rules should generally be aimed towards, like, having. Why are these women shouting? Okay.
Yeah, they're generally aimed. Yeah, there's concerns in the way that we construct rules. Like, you want to eliminate the amount of unnecessary rules, and you want to eliminate how many rules you have.
And you generally say something like, well, if these sorts of rules, if there's a given situation where these sorts of rules do not achieve the aim in which they're supposed to be there for, then they would, like, then that's a good reason for us to no longer, to, like, abandon these rules for the given situation, right?
It's a comparative tool. So, like, you always want to follow rules. But suppose like a rule is not 100% exhaustive of, like, or the action being prescribed is not 100% exhaustive of producing good experiences in in all the cases. The question is, well, what rule should we abandon it for? That would replace the exhaustion of all those different cases in the prescription. And if there's not a better rule, then we would just take that one.
I mean, wait, so you'd say, like, even if the rule doesn't actually capture specifically what we should do in this given situation, if
Well,
there's
not what we should do, just what's,
or the given situation, I should say, then, like, unless there's an opposing rule which generally is just generally which fulfills the category better than the original one, then we should still accept the original one anyway.
You should accept the rule that best orients you towards a life of enjoyment. That's the idea.
I mean, well, I just take it that specifically if I have a rule which is supposed to orient me towards a life of enjoyment, however it is unable to completely or at least most of the time capture these sort of like not only capture like what aligns with a life of enjoyment but also aligns with generally my own like the person who's like actually applying these rules and the intuitions of most people generally. I think that if we still continue to uphold these sorts of rules we like lose out in terms of practicality, right? Like most
No,
people,
the rules are
I
are
mean,
practical.
specifically, most people would like obviously most people would say that you're doing something morally wrong, right? If you wait, why is my father calling me now? But most people would say that you're doing something morally wrong if you like abandon your child, even if it was
I
conducive for your
agree.
well-being, right?
I, well, I think that abandoning your child, and when you say abandoning, I'm assuming you're not talking about like giving up for adoption. You're talking about just like leaving it on the street or
Yeah, just
something.
leaving it on the street, and it never affects your own
I think
well-being.
I think that's against the rules. I don't think that.
Wait,
Is
but how would those
the-
sorts of actions, where it, like doing that sort of action in general, just has no bearing on your? Oh my God, he's calling me now. I'm back.
I'll just ask I'm going to ask one question. Doesn't matter what the answer is. Then just give the conversation back to Shinra. Do you think there's any action which is in alignment with your self-interest, which could still be considered as immoral?
No.
Okay, cool.
I mean, there are a whole bunch of like there are a whole bunch of issues with that specifically. So taking that one, actually, I need to ask you first. Why are these people so loud? Okay. One specifically, what do you like? Whenever you say self-interest, there, what do you mean?
I'm talking about your flourishing, like your life of enjoyment.
Okay. So then, if I give you an example of a whole bunch of Omnimans who you came to their planet and you decided that, oh, well, I think I would really enjoy it if I just obliterated the planet, went back home, nobody knew a thing, right? You'd say that would in fact you're morally obligated to obliterate this world full of Omnimans, right? Because it serves towards your own enjoyment, no?
No, again, you're taking my view as some kind of subjectivist view. I don't think that what determines what is enjoyable is just whatever you want. It's specifically the facts of your nature that surround the production of positive qualia. So, no, I mean...
Yeah, I have no clue what you mean there. Like, do you just mean some...
I don't think... I take an objective account of self-interest and not a subjective account. I don't think it's just an attitude about something which makes something self-interested.
Why is this other thing speaking? But what were you saying? Sorry, some individual cut you off.
I take an objective account of self-interest, not a subjective account.
So you believe like the sorts of things which act towards your self-interest aren't like stance dependent. My question, like, I'm still unclear. Whenever you said like specific nature, you said something about nature and I didn't really hear you. If you can repeat it, that would be amazing.
Yeah. The what determines what is within your self-interest is determined by the facts of your nature, like what kind of thing you are, not just like by what attitudes you have.
What kind of thing you are, and specifically in the case of a human, for example, can you explain to me like what kind of thing we are, which warrants the fact that it wouldn't be in our self-interest to obliterate all of these Omnimans?
Okay, well that's kind of I'd have to go through like all of normative ethics to get to that. So no, I'm not gonna do that. But
or take the instance of somebody like abandoning their child and it never like affects their own social standing.
Again, that too. Like these kinds of these are complex moral issues. I'll give you like the basic sketch outline, but I'm not gonna go through all of normative ethics. The way it would work is here's an example. This is a basic one. So human beings are a rational animal. So the way that we have to live our life, our means of survival is the use of reason. And so our primary virtue and our primary rule is rationality, right? A commitment to the facts, a commitment to being logical, a commitment to reasoning better. Another obvious virtue you can create is the virtue of productivity, right? Like you have to be able to transform reality into being something which is beneficial to you, right? So you have to be able to change it to be valuable. And, productivity is a virtue too. As it pertains to the interaction with other people, there's a couple virtues which are at play. One of them is justice, which just means objectively judging the character and treatment of other human beings. And the way you should think about that is what kind of things can you get out of them and what kind of things can they get out of you. There's like a whole big explanation, like probabilistic reasoning stuff in favor of the conclusion that you should treat other people as potential traitors and respect their dignity.
I'll specifically focus on the first part. Whenever you say like human have a nature as a rational animal, so the sort of virtue we would have is conducting our actions like, or you said specifically something like we should operate rationally because that's part of our nature.
It's required in order to live. Yeah.
Yeah, but my question is specifically whenever you say like a given action is rational, what do you mean there? Like, or you
saying
say
the action was. You're saying that the action was formed on the basis of, or it was done on the basis of principles that were formed based on the facts of reality, using reasoning and logic and evidence.
Yeah. So do you not think that then in the case of for example me harming all of these omnimans, maybe you said like there's another principle that I'm forgetting, but in the case of me harming all of these like omnimans and like blowing them up, you like there would be specifically no part of that which would be irrational, no? Like unless you can.
There are parts of that's irrational. Yeah, there are parts of that are rational. Again, that's kind of developing a social ethical code is part of, is like constitute of what being rational is. Like if you think about it, rationality is just kind of this general.
Wait, can you repeat what you said? My mom walked into my room.
Yeah. Social ethical principles and developing other ethical principles define and constitute what being rational is. So like if I just say being rational is the master virtue, that kind of gives you a basic outline for how we go about these other situations, but it doesn't necessarily tell you the answer to other situations. Right, so there are principles which govern your life in a social setting. One of them is benevolence, which means generally treat people with generosity, kindness, and charity. Another one of them is justice, and part of the requirements of justice is that you don't just fucking obliterate people just because you want. You have to have good reason to obliterate people, and the good reason is kind of determined by certain political norms also too. So
I mean, wait, so first you said it's like what being rational would be grounded in is specifically some social and political norms, you said.
Being rational is constituted of following certain political and social norms. Yeah,
I mean, well, clearly, like, take an example, like, you take, for example, those people who currently were fighting against slavery in the times in which not only was it legal, but there was a good amount of people.
Not current political institutions. I'm talking about, like, proper political norms and social norms, not...
Yeah, I'm confused. What do you mean by proper there? Like...
Proper, as in, like, life conducive. Think like this, if you just exist on an island, by yourself, there is no politics you have to worry about. But if you live in this state of nature with other people, society is a benefit to you only if it exists in a certain way. And so society has to be governed by certain principles in order for it to be life advantageous for you. And those, governing principles would be the political principles I'm talking about.
Yeah. So the sort of like social and political norms there, they have to be life permitting for you to for them to be proper. But then it all just seems to boil down to maybe some subjective standard. Like it doesn't seem any different than subjectivism there. Because if I asked you something like, okay, well, why does it have to be why does it a proper social political system have to be life permitting for what'd you say?
The standard of value is life is why.
Yeah, wait, the standard of value is life? I've heard that term be used before, but I've never understood what they specifically mean there. I'm really confused. What do you mean when you say the standard of value is life?
Okay, I don't...
Dude.
I've already explained what values are, so I mean, the standard just means it's what determines what's, good and bad.
So, what determines what is good or bad is whether or not it affects you. Because I assume since you're an ego, it's what affects your own life there.
It's the standard for what is good and bad is determined by your nature as a rational animal. So the life of a rational animal qua itself. So what kind of things in principle are conducive to the life of a rational animal, and the things, if you're talking about morality or politics, whatever. You'll use man's life as the standard of value to determine on principle what's good and bad.
Okay.
That's the idea.
And specific, why are these, oh my god, I'm about to go and punch my mom and dad. But look, specifically you said that like what is a rational animal? Generally those sorts of properties that are needed to constitute something being rational is whether or not or it's like its alignment with specific social and political norms which promote
To
life.
clarify, not its nature as a rational animal, but a description of its behavior as rational. Yeah. So like there's multiple senses of the term rational. There's like rational in the sense that you have the faculty of being able to abstract reason, and then there's being rational as like a type of judgment and status that you were reasoning in like a correct way.
Yeah. And you just take. I assume you take the second, and you also see like take that to be because I'm really confused whenever you mention the sort of social and political norms. Do you think that, for example, if there's an instance where there's only one person and there's that one person and a dog, for example, and they decided that they wanted to like punch on the dog and beat it to death, that suddenly, I mean, well, the sort of actions they're doing, it doesn't like not align with some social norm. It also doesn't like not align with some political norm either.
Yeah,
But you'd
that's-
still
that's
say
what
they're
I
like,
think is
they're not
important.
behaving rationally, right?
You said it's them and a dog, and they're just beating it up. I think they can make more value out of the dog in other ways. Is why I think that's irrational.
And I assume like wait, they can have more value. And my question is, why would I take any sort of other value system, such as like it has to promote life, for example? Why would I say that is suddenly more important than my desire to just gain pleasure by brutalizing this dog? Say like I named the dog Monlam and I want to brutalize her.
Because you're being. The point is that you're being short-sighted. If you looked at the long-term value the dog could bring you, you'd actually have better positive experience. You'd have more and higher quality of positive experiences if you treated the dog in a different way.
More and higher positive experiences. I mean, well, it's sort of like if like okay, if I just stipulated in the analogy that the dog was going to die in like 2 days, they like literally it's completely decrepit, right? Like there's really nothing that I can do, right? It's going to die naturally, painlessly.
Well, there's also, I just want to clarify that the thing that I just said is a reason why you shouldn't just beat up dogs. It's also the reason for the principle. But the second thing is
wait, I'm just asking for the sake of the analogy, do you now think that in this sort of scenario where it wasn't going to be able to do anything that would benefit you specifically, it would now
Well, the first thing is the thing I was making is a comparison as to why you should do something else. But then the question is, well, why should I? What exactly is the motivations behind hitting a dog, and are the motivation behind hitting a dog actually are they reasoned by principles that are life promoting?
I mean, and by life promoting that, you just mean it gives you a better quality of life.
Well, it's not. It's not just giving that. It's the fact that is the principle that governs the action life promoting. So, like, I judge actions according to what principles they follow. I judge by principles. So, like, when you say you want to beat up a dog, like, what fucking category of behavior does that embody? Does that embodying like pseudo-masochism? Is that the principle being endorsed? Like, is that why it's supposed to be good because it's pseudo-masochistic? Like, what about it is good?
I mean, well, specifically, people like the person would say that the good part about it is you're creating more like positive experiences for yourself.
I'm asking for the
yeah, the principle would just be all things being equal, you should create more positive experiences for yourself.
That's not a principle.
Wait, what do you think a principle is?
Look, a principle is it's an identification of a category of action as good or bad.
Repeat what you said?
It's the identification of a category of action being conducive or not conducive to your self-interest. And so if I say, well, this action is good because it's honest, the category of action I'm talking about is honesty, and I've identified honesty as being life promoting. If you say, well, I'm going to beat up this dog, it's like, well, what category of action does it embody? Is it like, is it courageous? Is it like what is it? Like,
I mean, you could say like maybe it's sort of masochistic, like in the sense that, well, I don't know if it's masochistic. Probably like it wouldn't be that. It just probably be hedonistic. I think that's the word for it. Like,
but hedonism isn't a. That's the problem. Like, hedonism isn't a.
Yeah, no, I know. Like hedonism isn't a principle. I'm just saying like the sort of principles you're going by there would just be. I think it would probably just be something like I want like maximizing pleasure for myself. I don't think I have like clear-cut semantics for the term, but it'd probably just be.
the problem is that just identifying the final goal of ethics does not give you principles. Like ethics is not just like identifying, well, what should I go for? It's specifically creating a guide to be able to guide yourself to get those things. So what principles does this thing?
Wait, repeat what you said?
This thing?
I need to go in like 2 seconds, but repeat what you said?
Yeah, just identifying the final goal of ethics does not give you a principle as a means by which you achieve that. And so when you just say, well, my principle is the a life of enjoyment, it's like that's not a principle. That's the end goal, right? But a principle is a means. Right? Like it's a type of action that we can identify as conducive to this final goal.
Well, okay, my bad. Maybe it's like my Wi-Fi, but you were breaking up the entire time you were said that.
I think that's you, bro.
Okay, wait, give me a second. Let me leave and rejoin.
Okay.
Okay, hello.
Yeah, it's
Okay. Yeah, it's me. Yeah, okay, can you repeat what you said now?
Yeah, identifying the final goal of ethics doesn't give you that's not a principle. A principle is the means, not the goal.
Then wouldn't you just say like the means at least there would just be beat up all dogs, which if by beating if by beating them would maximize your own pleasure or something?
Well, no. And the reason why is that when you construct rules, you need to keep in mind this idea called principle parsimony. And the reasoning for this is epistemological. There's this idea called a unit economy, and the idea is essentially that human beings cannot like consciously grasp like more than 7 to 9 things at once.
Not me.
All right, bro.
I'm playing Subway Surfers right now, bro. Come on now.
The point, though, right, is that human beings have this kind of limited capacity for conscious awareness. And if, let's suppose I had, like, fucking 1 million moral principles I consulted my life by. Like, you actually, it's, like, a very ineffective... You literally could not live like that if you tried consulting 1 million principles, right?
Yeah, because there's an over-demandingness issue, right?
Right, and so what you need to do is you need to be able to, get, like, 7 to 9, corresponding to the epistemological requirements, 7 or 9 general rules that you could follow that will lead you towards a good life. And if you just have this fucking rule where it's like, well, if a dog is about to die, and like, what kind of principle is that? I mean, like, you're obviously just overinflating the principle economy. You could just have some principle where you say, it's basically, it's too particularized. You need to be more general.
Okay, beat all the... Okay, D1 like punched on his mom for no reason, but the principle there would just be beat all dogs to death, which are about... Or beat all near dead dogs to death. Come on. End their life early.
Why?
Yeah, because it's causing you more pleasure than it's causing them like harm. Or it's causing them like... Yeah, it's causing you more pleasure than it's causing them harm.
I'm not asking about their harm, but... What exactly do you gain from that? You said it's enjoyment? What is the enjoyment from? Is it from the causing of pain?
Yeah.
Right. So then the principle here is sadism, right? Okay. So the general principle which it embodies is the inflicting of pain. But the question is like why exactly is the inflicting of pain good?
Wait, give me a second. Apple, can I get an... Okay. Okay, wait. Can you repeat what you said? I was laughing at Haram.
Why is the inflicting of pain good?
Why is the inflicting of pain good? Oh, probably because it just satisfies some desire that you have, right? Like, now it's...
Yeah, but the point is that under this view, desires are also evaluatable. Right? So I'm willing to grant that I might satisfy a desire you currently have, but the question is, like, should you have that desire?
I mean, don't you think that sort of critique also applies to your view? Say, like, for example, your view is like, oh, well, you should operate under a rational, or you should operate as a rational animal. And you should also, like, and then I ask you, well, why is operating as a rational animal good?
Because it's required in order to produce positive experiences.
And why is having positive experiences good?
That's the category error.
How?
Because the concept of good comes from positive qualia.
Yeah, that's the sort of like disagreement. I mean, well, my question would be why. Like, I don't know why, but...
Okay, imagine you had no positive qualia. Do you have a concept of good and bad?
What'd you say?
Suppose you have no positive or negative qualia. Do you have a moral concept? Do you have a concept of good and bad?
I mean, no, because I'm an anti-realist, but I don't know like whether or not just because I don't specifically have a concept, that means that those two are like completely linked to each other.
Okay,
Right?
well,
Like,
if it's inconceivable, then it's pretty good evidence that you don't have it, right? Because we just trait equalize in a world with pleasure, pain. You have the concept of a world without it, you don't. So I mean, it's pretty easy to think about it. But
I mean, would you say something like for all negative qualia is like bad? That's the sort of view you have.
no,
Okay, never. Okay then. But I mean, don't you think those same responses then apply to the view that you were just critiquing? Because then it just goes like, well, you ask me
Because
why is
I
having
can
positive
defend.
experiences good? It's like, okay,
I can
well,
defend according. I can defend according on objective grounds why being honest is good, right? But if something is like, oh, I'm pseudo-masochist, it's like, okay, why is pseudo-masochism good?
repeat what you said.
I said, the kind of principles I'm establishing, those principles are based on the factual reality, my nature, right? But if you have something like pseudo-masochism, why is pseudo-masochism good?
Why should it? I mean, well, I just think, at least for the sake of I mean, give me a sec. I'm about to go, but I just was like, this is the last sort of comment I have before I like need to leave because these people won't leave me alone. But
Okay.
I think specifically in those sorts of contexts, it's just like, I don't know, specifically just be like, I don't think that appealing to your own sort of quote unquote nature would be good grounds for any sort of moral belief that you have. I think like if you say I have a nature as a rational animal, and then the reason why, like, or what constitutes a rational animal is aligning with some social and political norms, right, which are life promoting, they all just seem to all just collapse onto the same sort of subjective grounds that you have, right? Like, okay,
It doesn't
yeah,
collapse. We've already established it doesn't in any way collapse. I mean, I don't see how it's collapsing. I've kind of said how it doesn't.
I mean, don't you think that like specifically if I asked you, okay, well, why should I care about maximizing positive experiences, for example, or why should I care
That's
about
a
having positive
category.
experiences? Then you'd say like you didn't say take like a category as you just said, or you just say like, oh well, those are the type of things which you can't have a value system without having, right?
Well, yeah, because it's a category.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know specifically if I'm convinced that you can't have a value system without specifically having
Well, I mean,
specifically having to appeal to emotional
value.
states.
The concept of value comes from the experience of positive quality. So
But
Well, yeah, what?
give me
But
a
you're
second.
making like an analytic claim when you say that, right? Like, you're not making like a physical claim. Like that's just
Pardon?
what you mean by good, right?
it's not what I mean by good. It's the thing which the moral concept of good comes from.
Well, but for that to be the case, is that you have to make the claim that like they're synonymous, right?
They're not synonymous. Goodness is synthetic. It's not analytic.
Oh, okay. So at that